will please rise. Councillor Schleila will lead us this evening in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anita, would you call roll first, please?
Councillor Martinez.
Here.
Councillor Lorenz.
Here.
Councillor Schleila.
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here.
And Councillor Schrader will be out this evening. A quorum is declared.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any other discussion? Anita?
Councillor Lorenz.
Aye.
Councillor Schleila.
Aye.
Councillor Martinez.
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Moving on to citizens' comments and special presentations. We do have an addition to a special presentation this evening from Carly, forgive me if I botch this, Johannesson?
You got
Johansson. And is Jake?
it. Jake did not make it.
Okay. They're here to do a project on solar gardens. It's all yours if you want to come forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Carly Johansson. I work with a nonprofit organization called Community Resources and Housing Development Corporation. We have an office in Alamosa. Most prominently down here in the valley, we do self-help program with USDA. What we are looking to do is partner with Grid Alternatives, which is another nonprofit organization. They're actually a nationwide organization. We primarily just work in the state of Colorado. But their organization focuses on green job training, and they do this through installing solar panels. They've done it on single-family homes, and they've worked with us on a multifamily housing project in Fort Morgan. Now they're interested in applying for a grant with Xcel Energy that would provide funding for a community solar garden. Specifically, the community solar garden energy would be available for low-income homeowners, also multifamily properties that house low to moderate income households. So our organization has land in Monte Vista, which is why they've come to us saying, is this something you'd be interested in doing with us? Do you know of any land that might be available? They know that we could help with client base to, get people in touch with this energy. So I said, yes, we have some land in Monte Vista. It's in our subdivision, Tierra del Sol. There is a parcel of land there as part of our PUD that is currently zoned mixed-use residential commercial. It's a 2-acre parcel. Right now they're looking at that site to see if we can fit a 500 kilowatt system on that site. And if that works out well, we'll probably apply for this grant. It's due beginning of October with Xcel. And, the more you are shovel ready with all of your grants, the better opportunity you have. So having a lot available and ready to go is a plus. Having a client base is a plus. It wouldn't just be exclusively available to CRHDC clients. It could be, we're working to reach out to Habitat chapters, housing authorities. It would be available for multifamily. So it would be more of a coalition of housing providers that provide housing to, typically it's about the 80% of the area median income is those income levels that would qualify for this energy credit to offset their electrical costs. So right now we're just at the very preliminary phases. Nothing's been designed. I don't have a a plan in place that I'm seeking a permit for or anything. Right now, we're just applying for the grant. And one of the things that would make the grant really competitive is if we had a resolution from town council saying that we support this project. So that's really what we're here requesting, is just resolution voicing their support. We talked about getting just a letter of support instead of a resolution, and Excel would really prefer a resolution because the specific grant we're going after is actually a community-based grant, which means that you're working with the community, working with the city on it. So that's why we're seeking a resolution versus a letter of support. So I'm here tonight representing not just CRHDC, but also Grid Alternatives. I don't know all the answers on Grid's side of things, but I can tell you from working with them on projects that they're a high-capacity organization, and the green jobs training aspect is really well thought out and well marketed and well executed. But any specific questions you have about the solar array or interconnections with Xcel Energy, I don't know if I'll be able to answer the questions, but I know where to get the answers. So, so I'm happy to take questions, concerns, comments.
Is this going to be plugged into like the main Excel grid, or is it just going to be for the Tierra del Sol subdivision?
To the main Xcel Energy grid, yeah,
Okay.
not for just the Tierra del subdivision. It's actually available to not just Rio Grande County, but neighboring counties as well. So Alamosa County residents can access it. Any neighboring bordering county can access this too. So
Basically, anybody that meets the income level criteria.
that's exactly right.
And so here's my second question then. So because this happened in Del Norte where they built the solar array and they had hope that in case the power went out to the town, that they could activate the solar array, still provide power to the town in the event of that. But when the power went out, it deactivated the grids and it didn't allow the power to transfer. Is that something that's feasible with this? I know it's a lot more technical, but
That's a great question. Gosh, I would hope not. But I don't know the answer to that, but I'm gonna write it down and I'll ask about that. Yeah.
So wishes of council. Asking the city attorney to adopt a resolution in support of the solar garden project. Is it, now, what specifically do you want as the name of this project, or an organization, or?
I think we could probably call it the Monte Vista Community Solar Garden. Yeah. I don't have a name.
A resolution to,
Would there need to be a memorandum of understanding between the two groups,
I
or?
guess that'd be a question for Karen.
Well, and if I could take that, so they did provide us with a draft resolution, but it needs some tuning from what it is. And basically we craft the resolution so that it supports the project, but would not create a binding effect upon the city, because there are some details that need to be worked out. And if that particular site doesn't work, there's also discussion, would the city have any property that we might lease to the solar array as well? So that was my initial concern about a resolution versus a letter of support. But I think we can craft a resolution that'll achieve their goals that they need for Excel, but still makes it easy enough so that if it does not work as we're told, that the city get out of it. And yeah, at some point it would require some form of memorandum of understanding between the parties.
So wishes of council on,
Is this something that needs to happen tonight, or can we kind of fine tune that resolution and bring it back to the next meeting?
we're not approving a
right.
resolution, we're just, the way I'm understanding it is you're asking us to vote to pursue writing
Okay.
a resolution that would support this solar garden.
That's right, and then on the 21st meeting is probably when you would officially approve the written resolution. And that still works really good with our timing because the grant is due at the beginning of October.
So yeah, we're just talking about a vote on writing a resolution to support a solar garden project.
Do we even need to vote, or can we just say, why don't you
I
write
believe
that
they
in?
just direct staff by,
Yeah,
So just like kind of
Yeah.
please do that and we'll look at it next time.
a not a head.
I concur with Jason on that
Okay,
one.
all right, okay. So I'm assuming then we're all okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
We'll see you at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody. I appreciate your time.
All right, we are on to the citizens' comment section of tonight's meeting. This is the time where any unscheduled comments can be heard. We ask that you please come up to the microphone and state your name. And we ask you to limit your time to 3 minutes. And of course, council cannot take any action on any items. So do we have anyone this evening that would like to? Okay, we have one, Gary Johnson, okay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, I just found out that the measure that we've been debating for some time about this ballot has been apparently decided because of an article in the Colorado Constitution says you can't have two subjects. So if I understand this correctly, what we have now and what is being proposed through the city attorney, I'm sure, and the council is a measure saying, do you want marijuana in your town? And another measure saying, do you want to pay for it?
Tax it.
Tax it. Well, and the taxes, of course, shall the taxes of the city of Monte Vista be increased by an estimated $500,000. That, of course, continues on with some revenue. Does anybody in the audience, does anybody in the council even have the slightest suspicion that this isn't going to pass as a yes, we want marijuana, and no, we don't want to pay for it? I would submit to the council that if this measure, that if this amendment says in the Colorado Constitution, no measure shall be proposed by petition containing more than one subject, that's pretty simple. A, do you want to build a community center? And B, do you want a recreational park on the other side of town? You can't put that in the same, that makes sense. To put in a measure that is going to involve taxation and cost to the city and to the citizens and some supposed return on all of this is not a separate subject. I would submit very plainly, it's not a separate subject from the measure itself about marijuana. The reason that the taxation is there is because we're talking about a marijuana approval and rescission of our long-standing ordinance against the whole idea. Let me ask the council a question. Is this, am I reading this right, or am I in error here?
Do you, well, Mr. Johnson, so do you understand Tabor and how that works?
I understand it as much as any citizen understands it. So is that what you're saying enters into the split into two different ballot measures?
Well, so Tabor is very specific, and with the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, they make it very clear that any tax increase, be it a petition or be it from a municipality or a county, has to be separate. And the idea behind that is that you can't hide a taxing question in with another question, that if you're going to ask for a tax increase, you have to be upfront with it and have it as its own question, so that way no one can say later, a town, a petition or anything deceived the voters by hiding it in the midst of a bill or a ballot question so that it's its own separate thing. That way they know that this is going to increase their taxes by that. And so while I understand what you're saying with that it's contained within the singular subject, but because of Tabor and with the Colorado Constitution, it has to be that any taxing question, regardless of what it is, has to be separate as long as it's an increase. At least my understanding of Tabor.
I appreciate that.
And I would,
Go ahead.
I would probably just ask the city attorney to weigh in on this as well, since she's the legal mind in the room. And I would think that probably want to make sure that our lawyer gets a chance to weigh in on what actually is the legal definition of that.
Well, and I'm sure I know what that is, and I don't want to cut that off, but I certainly would want to hear that input, but I think it's pretty clear what the intent is here. I would respectfully submit that what you're saying, Councilor Martinez, is a misinterpretation of what Tabor actually intended. If you're putting up a ballot measure to build a community center, and here's what it's going to cost, and it's $3.5 million, you're saying that the voters could technically approve the community center, but not the $3.5 million tax increase.
That has happened before.
That has happened.
Well, if that has happened, then it needs to stop. It needs to stop here.
Well,
This whole issue,
It's
oh,
not.
is that you doing that? Okay, I get the point.
Tabor is not a Monte Vista City Council.
Oh, I understand
You're
that.
talking state constitution. I mean, you got to take this to the state level. This is not an issue
So
that
community-
we can vote on. We can't vote to disregard Tabor.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. Apparently, my time is up, but, oh, I'm sorry.
We do have an option regarding Tabor. If we can't put the two together, we could simply put forward the ballot initiative for the tax, know whether it passes or not, and then either the council can put forward next year a ballot initiative to allow marijuana, or wait for someone to put a referendum through to allow marijuana. And that way the city's protected in that we know whether we'll have taxes or not, and we're not risking having marijuana without the taxes. So we
That
put them
makes-
both out at the same time, there is the chance that the tax fails and the marijuana passes. If we put the tax out first, at least we know whether we have approval for the taxes or not.
That makes perfectly good sense. You say there's a possibility. I say there's an absolute. How bright do you have to be to know that that the first one is gonna pass, and the one that starts off with shall the taxes of the city of Monte Vista be increased by an estimated $500,000? Well, I don't think so on that, but yeah, on this deal. If it's because of Tabor, then yeah, we need to go to the state level and get this issue settled. This either needs to be dropped and voted out tonight, so it does not show up as a ballot measure, the two of them, or do as Councilor Lorenz suggests, at least do the first part by itself. We're thinking about bringing marijuana into our town. Do you want to first approve this taxing measure? If I don't want to get in trouble for being over time.
As well, that we're not suggesting, or the ballot question isn't suggesting that we raise everyone's taxes.
I understand that.
The ballot question says, do you want to tax marijuana
Right.
at this rate?
In which case, that's very
It's an excise
deceptive,
tax.
the way that it's
So,
worded, but.
if I choose not to smoke marijuana, I'm not paying any taxes. It's not raising my taxes at all. So you have to also look at the argument that if I'm going to vote against this, heck yeah, I'll vote to tax the people who do choose to use it. I'm not going to use it, but I'll tax the people who do. I'm sure that's the way most people are thinking as well.
I don't think so, but I
Well,
would respectfully
there's an
disagree.
unknown there. We don't know what
Right.
people are
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
If we just put one question out, then we can at least find out.
That
how
makes
they think.
such clear sense.
Well, then you're also
This-
paying for two.
Then let's pay for two. We got into this whole thing in an asinine presentation that should never have happened, and now it's looking at as though we're gonna end up with, if I can just take the man off the street, that's gonna say, do we want this tax situation? And B, do we want to have marijuana in our town? So I don't have to drive all the way to Alamosa to get my joint. If the man on the street is looking at that, and I'm pretending to be him right now, I'm gonna say, bring in the pot, and we're not gonna raise any money doing it, nor are we going to spend any money doing it. So no on that deal. I have to tell you, that's where I have always been. If there's a tax measure, probably shouldn't say this, not gonna help my cause, but my vote is no. I've seen too much. I came from California, and it built to the point where it was out of control. In any case, I would simply submit that this needs to be, and I want to go on record, based on what I read, and I just found out about this 10 minutes ago. I didn't know this was going to be, I thought it was going to be together, as the city attorney had promised. And apparently, just because it doesn't say anything about Tabor in here, it just simply says that if it's two subjects.
Mr. Johnson, I'd like to ask you, when exactly was it promised that it was going to be a single question?
At the last meeting, at the last council meeting.
No.
Said if that's the way you want it,
If I may finish, the agreement was that we would look into the legality of combining the question.
I understand
Apparently,
that.
it wasn't legal.
Okay, and I would debate that, whether it was actually legal or not. There's a matter of interpretation here. But nonetheless, if it's going to be illegal to do it that way, then I can only suggest that we throw it out and start over. Or, as Councilor Loren suggests, do the sensible thing and put in the tax measure first. We gotta make all this money, these pots of gold from these marijuana sales. Is that what you want? Yes, we'll go for that. Next step, do you want to have marijuana in our town? I would vote against both myself because it's never been proven that there's any revenue coming out of this thing. There's a lot of talk about it on the media, but not according to Saguache County, not according to Costilla County, not according to Denver, not according to Pueblo. In any case, something needs to happen there, something needs to change. If you decide to go ahead the way this is, then I simply want to be on record, and we'll make it widely known that there is an objection. The city has already objected to this whole thing en masse by showing up in the council chambers. And I'm showing up as one that's shocked that we talked about, yeah, we'll see if it's going to work, and we show up in time for the council meeting, and oh, no, that's not going to work. We have to do Plan B is not going to work. We have to go with Plan A, and exacerbate the mistake that was done to begin with by having these two ballot measures together. I can't think of any more to say, and I also can't, I apologize for going over time, but I've been incensed about a few things in my life, not very many. This one right now is at the top of the list, and the council needs to seriously consider some common sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak? Moving on to resolutions. We have the submission for the ballot question to the voters, allowing marijuana establishments, and the second question of the imposition of a tax on the sales of marijuana products. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Karen, or?
Madam Mayor, other than the memo that I did send the day after this issue was brought to the attention, I also provided for the public the requirement for the Constitution, the CRS, they have to be, it's a single issue state. I did extensive research on it. Every other jurisdiction in Colorado that has considered this has drafted it exactly as is proposed. I looked at a lot of exemplars, and unfortunately, this is how Tabor impacts how we can do this legally in our state. I think Forrest also probably has some other.
You know, at the council's request, I also reached out to outside legal counsel. I spoke with Diane Criswell, who's the legislative counsel for Colorado Municipal League, on this issue. And essentially, the only examples that she could provide, there was an example provided at the last meeting that co-joined the questions with an and there was one other which failed, and that was actually Del Norte's. The basic statement that she made is, you know, you can do it any way you want to, but you would have a constitutional violation by combining the questions. So it says da-da-da-da and then that. It actually is in violation of the state's constitution. And the best example that, you know, she related to me was, okay, so you pass it that way, everyone's fine, who's going to challenge it? Now, you know, the legislature passed some legislation this spring that wasn't single question, and they're being sued by a Tabor support group. You know, that's lawsuits just started, but basically they rolled it into, okay, the state can keep this money that it's got from marijuana, and they can do this with it, and they can do that, which wasn't a single issue. And it's likely they won't prevail in that lawsuit. So she's like, okay, so here's an example. You pass it that way, it's in place. You get someone who's going to sell marijuana or manufacture, and they don't like the tax base, and they say, oh, well, you know what? When you pose the question, you violated the state constitution, we're going to sue you because we don't want to pay your taxes. So your question was improperly formed. Well, okay. And based upon, you know, that discussion with her and some other research I did, you know, Tabor is I'm trying to think of a polite word for it, kind of a messy thing. And essentially what she was saying is, yeah, you know, you can do whatever you want, but the fact is it's better to follow the state's constitution if you're posing this kind of question. So the way that the city attorney has drafted it, as opposed to the example that we had at the last council meeting, which, you know, was passed by another municipality in the valley, but there's certainly a constitutional question on that if somebody wanted to sue them, they probably would have grounds. There were some other issues with the Tabor question itself in that election, but that's not our issue.
Well, I guess for my whole thing would be that I would prefer to avoid a large corporation coming in and getting us involved in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit on my end.
Can I make one?
And one of the things that you need to consider with Tabor, excuse me, it does allows for attorney's fees for the prevailing party, and that's part of why I would not encourage this council to try to go outside of what we already know is not going to get us into constitutional trouble, which is the two separate questions.
Can I make one more short comment?
I believe our citizens' comment section is over. Thank you.
Because I would simply
I
suggest that
believe
you
the
consider
citizens, Gary,
Councilor Lorenz.
the citizens'
I'll
comment
be-
section is
thank you.
over. Thank you.
But common sense needs to prevail. If you make that motion, Jason, I'll expect some people to second it.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
All right. So,
Well, Mike, before we go, so with the 18% sales tax, and I see here where it has the 1% excise tax for, we broke up the excise, the 2% excise tax that we were talking about into 1% excise for, find it, for the police department, to upgrade equipment and to provide for personal or for personnel, and 1% said revenue generated specifically designated for the Monte Vista Capital Improvement Fund. So is that, does that have to be in, or does it have to be separated like that, or does it, can it be, or is it easier, I guess, to read when it's separated out 1% as opposed to a 2% excise tax? And does that have to be separate?
I drafted it in the way, because you said you had two specific areas you wanted to go to. And my understanding, again, following other jurisdictions who have done this and done it successfully, that you separate it out and you specifically make it clear where that money is going.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I just wanted a little bit more clarity on that. And that we could incorporate the 2% excise tax within the tax in question, or if that 2% had to be separate as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Did I answer the question?
yes.
Sorry, okay.
I would make a motion that we amend the proposed resolution for ballot questions, deleting ballot question number 2, removing all portions allowing the operation of medical, retail, marijuana cultivation, manufacturing, testing facilities, and sales in the city of Monte Vista, leaving only the tax question to be put on the ballot this year.
We have a motion?
I'd like to address that a little bit. My biggest concern is we saw where there was a ballot petition that had 273 signatures that was submitted to the city clerk this summer. Now, fortunately, we were able to disqualify that question, but the question was worded in such a manner that we would have had exposure to a legal lawsuit, and we would have lost with that. And we would have had, if he would have been able to get it qualified, he would have been able to get that on the ballot, and if it passed, we would have had no recourse against it. My biggest concern is he dropped that because he was aware that there's another ballot question coming. If we don't put this ballot question on, now we're right back in the same situation that we were in the past, where he can bring that question back again. And now we're once again legally exposed, and we have an issue where we're facing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And I really would like to try and avoid that.
May I address that, Joe?
Sure.
So we do have recourse. If we found that the ballot measure, the referendum was illegal, and it did pass, we still are the governing body of Monte Vista. And as soon as it passed and we had legal advice that it was illegal, we could simply opt out again, because we have that authority. We continue to have that authority even if this passes today. So, we have no legal. If we found that we thought we were going to be out there illegally, we could simply opt out again on those grounds. And there would be no medical, retail, or any marijuana allowed.
I'm just trying to understand where the law is that you're referring to.
We are the governing body of the city of Monte Vista. We are allowed to make the decision whether to opt in or opt out.
Unless the citizens decide for us.
No, we can continue. We still have the option to opt in and opt out. We are giving them the option to decide if you choose to put this forward. The next city council could come in and opt out on their own grounds. We can continue to be the governing body of the city of Monte Vista. We do have that option. We can put it to referendum if we want to, but every year we could opt in or opt out.
So just to try and follow your logic, if a referendum is put on the ballot to amend the state constitution, the state legislature can override that referendum. Because that's what you're saying that we're doing here.
No, I'm saying when they allowed marijuana in the state of Colorado, they gave the cities and counties, governing bodies, the right to opt in and opt out.
Right.
By putting this referendum out, we are not giving up that right. We are simply putting it forward.
No, we're giving up that right. We're allowing the people to decide for us.
I don't think you can overturn a vote as a council. Can you?
So if the citizens were to pass an initiative, be it this or anything else, if the citizens were to do a petition initiative and it passes, can the council at that point override that voter's decision, or is it whatever on the ballot is goes?
In the instance of marijuana, as it was stated, we are the governing body of the city of Monte Vista. We have the right to opt in and opt out.
The city has a right, but not necessarily just the council. Now, we do represent that. But
No,
once
the
it's
council, the governing body is given that right. We were duly elected by the electorate to represent them, so we have that right.
I'd like to see that law, because I'm just not quite sure that that's how it is. Because all of the research that I've done and all the laws I've read, including the Constitution amendment that allowed marijuana within the state of Colorado, I have not read anything along those lines.
How are we allowed to opt out in the first place?
We were allowed to opt out because the citizens didn't want to put it on the ballot. We simply, in 2012, the council just voted out, but there was no referendum.
We don't have to put a referendum out. We have the right to opt out as the council, because we're the governing body.
But once the vote has passed by the people, the council can't override that. That in itself is a power grab, that even if it were legal, is ethically very, very questionable.
When Amendment 64 first passed, they did allow all communities to put like a moratorium in place or an opt-out option until all the rules and regs got laid out, you know, so that nobody could just come in and start putting in grow facilities or retail shops without any rules or regulations being established. And that's what I remember is our initial vote was to take that opt-out during that moratorium phase, and till such time we've had nobody even want to do a marijuana facility in this community. We now have a gentleman who has petitioned unsuccessfully, but he has petitioned to have it on the ballot as a council. Whether you agree or you disagree, I mean, we voted in a majority vote to allow the citizens of this community to decide that, you know, which I think is a responsible thing to do. It's not 5 people's decision, it's our community's decision. Our community should have a say in how they feel about it and what they want.
Our community did come in and speak
Well,
overwhelmingly against it.
we have
And he was a-
4,444 people. 4,444 people were not here in this room.
Well, and also, his referendum, he was not able to get enough signatures or appropriate signatures to get it on the ballot. And so now, the 4 people have decided that they'll override the fact that he was unable to get it on the ballot and get it on the form.
I think that's a measure that we've taken to control the language. That has nothing to do with overriding anything. And one of the big things that I look at here is we are not a republic and we're not a democracy. We're a representative democracy, which combines the ideology of a republic and a democracy together. And it says that the day-to-day activities of the country, of the municipalities, of the counties, however you break it down, should be governed by a smaller body to remove the cumbersome things of getting approval of everybody to decide which sewer pipe we're going to replace first, which street we're going to pave next. Those are the types of things that we've been elected to decide. What we have not, in my mind, should not try to grab the power from the people is when we go to make a decision that is going to impact the city for the next several decades. It's going to have a big impact. We can't take that power away from the people. That's a power grab in my mind that we have to let them have.
Well, then let's do it responsibly and put the tax question out first and put this ballot question out second. That way we know what the taxes are.
And
Because unfortunately, if we pass the marijuana, I don't know how it's gonna turn out. None of us know. If the marijuana is allowed in the city and we have no taxes, it's gonna be a big cost on the city that we frankly can't afford.
I think our city manager's got something to say.
Well, what I will say in this regard is, the city could put the tax question on the ballot and with no other question. Now, let's say the tax question fails. If a petition is then brought forward, the city will be required to hold a special election. And in a special election, you may not have a Tabor taxing question. So that question of, can you allow marijuana, whatever form that takes, in the city of Monte Vista, if that passes by the voters, there is no taxation potential.
How are we any worse off if that happens than if we put them both together now and it fails?
Well, and Counselor, that's an argument that you can make. I'm just saying, if it's just the
That's
taxation.
the opposite argument you were making, so.
Well, no, all I'm saying is that if we put the taxation on there and it fails, then there could be a referendum petition to have marijuana in the community.
At least that would be at a later date than putting them both on today and having it in November.
But we would not have any taxation.
If the tax question fails, we don't have taxation either way.
That is true. I mean, that is one of the risks that Tabor poses to our communities. By making, you got the Constitution says this, they gotta be separate questions. In a perfect world, it'll be a combined question. So it's both. That would be the way to have it done. But unfortunately, looking at the way the law is supported and looking at all these questions in the state of Colorado, they've been separate. Strangely enough, in South Fork, the taxation passed and the marijuana didn't. So they have taxation in place if it ever comes back and is passed. But there is certainly, there is a measure of risk there.
I definitely get what you're saying, Councilor Renz, and I respect that. I do disagree with that opinion. And I am concerned that if we don't put it on the ballot tonight, that we will be looking at a future where we have a very poorly worded ballot question out there that jeopardizes the city's legal integrity. And so that's the concern I have, and that's where I stand.
I would ask the city attorney, what happens in the case where a ballot initiative that would be illegal, is it allowed to be put on the ballot in the first place? Or would it be disqualified because it is illegal? Or if it got passed and it was illegal, would we be forced to carry out an illegal act? If a ballot measure got put on and said that I could take money out of his pocket forcefully, would I be allowed to do that?
I don't understand your question.
My question is, if a ballot initiative is put on the ballot, a referendum is put on the ballot, that is illegal, that would put the city at risk of lawsuit, and it passes, are we required to carry out that initiative? Or would it initially be disqualified because the language would be illegal and put us at risk of a lawsuit?
I would have to research that question because as worded, I can't answer it, I'm sorry.
Well, and I would go back to what was said by the CML attorney, that we can put whatever we want to on the ballot. It just means that at some point in time, it's going to be challenged legally. And so that's the question that I have is, should there, and I think I'm kind of moving along the same lines that you are on this, is if there's an illegal ballot question and it passes, can the city itself challenge the legality of that? Okay, so that's possible.
Yeah, and while the city attorney needs to research that, I believe that a question to be put on the ballot must be at least on its face, be legal. Now, on its face, be legal is different than, so it passes, and then you find that there's an error in it that makes it not legal. That example that was presented at the last meeting, the tax question, the tax portion of that, the table portion, not gonna get into it specifically, but part of that question was not legal. That's their problem to deal with, but if it's on its face legal, could it be challenged by anybody, including the city? Sure.
Going back to that example, that question, it allows and I'm talking about the Crestone ballot that was presented to the council 2 weeks ago, and I reviewed it. Not only is it a combination and violates the single subject rule, but if you read the language at the very end of it, it gives the governmental body, the town council of Crestone, the authority to, without voter approval, even though it said it was a 5%, they were going to tax the marijuana at 5%. In language at the bottom, it gave the council the right to raise it up to 15% without asking a question of the voters. Okay, so that passed. Someone may or may not challenge it. Is it legal? You know, that's a question for somebody to there's potential exposure for the municipality there. And so, and I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time following this. I'd like to, be able to do more research to be responsive to your queries.
Here's my input on this is that, you look at what happened here and what happened in Alamosa this year as well. That lady took 3 years for her to get it petitioned on the ballot, and she controlled the narrative on what could be regulated and what couldn't be regulated. And so I talked to some of their council members and I said, what are you guys going to do as far as ordinances, regulation, and everything? And they said, our hands are bound because of what she wrote in the what she wrote in the actual asked question. And so they can regulate everything that's not in the question, but if it's in there, then and it passes, it has to go. And so that raises concerns for me because they're stuck in a corner now, figuring out how they're going to get around this issue if it passes, and how they're going to protect the city, because at this point, that lady that petitioned it controls the narrative, controls the issue. And so I completely agree with what you said. I understand that. And, I won't go into illegal or legal questions, but I'm saying if it is legal and it goes on the ballot, whoever puts that on controls whatever that is. And they can say, I don't know, what if they say, well, we can have this anywhere, any state regular, it can be in any proximity to these things, or shorten it to whatever it is. And if that's on the question and it passes, then it has to go. And I don't like that, because I at least think that if at least you can control what we can regulate, what we can't regulate. And right now, if we do this, we can regulate everything, and we can make it how we would want it in the city. But if we take our hands off of the steering wheel and you let someone else decide it, it's anyone's guess. It could work in our favor, it couldn't. And while I agree with you that it is a very, I don't like the fact that it has to be in 2 questions. I think it should be in 1, and because then it's upfront, it's there. But if we can't do it legally, then it is what it is, because then you may end up with a South Fork situation where the taxing question passes, marijuana itself fails, and you're right, we don't know. We don't know how it's going to go. So
let me propose this then. Let's pass the taxing question. It gets on the November ballot. We find out whether it passes or not. As soon as it passes, or if it passes, hold a special election if you want to control that language. The cost for a special election will be much less than the cost of the marijuana issue passing without the tax passing. And then you still have control. more than likely you would have the referendum before anyone else would petition one for a special election. And then we're still protecting the city, knowing that the tax is in place first.
What's the wait time between an election to, how soon after an election can you have a special election?
Just looked at this issue, I think it's 32 days.
And how much is an election, a special election? With the
What's the
contract?
cost? I don't know.
According to what I understand, when we were looking at the special election issue, that we've been quoted by the county about $8,000.
Yeah. And if you notice in our annual budget, every year we plug in about $8,100 or $8,000 in case a referendum comes and we have to hold a special election. So it's roughly the same cost for us to do it. It's not as onerous as it once was because it would be a mail-in ballot election. You know, previously you'd have to have the voting machines, the bid tabs, or the vote tabs and all that stuff. And instead it'd be a mail-in ballot, you still have to tab votes, but it is simpler, but the cost is about the same. You know, there's a timeline where you can hold it, the election, but essentially you'll also have to get all your ducks in a row, and that usually, I think, is about 90 days. So, you know, if the tax question passed, then you could, you know, start the process with the city council and go forward.
So do I have a second?
Would you mind amending that to state if the tax question passes, we will do a special election as soon as possible for the marijuana?
No, I won't, but you can do that. You guys have me outvoted anyway, so you could do that anytime you wanted.
So we don't have a second to Jason's. Do we have a new motion?
What is the resolution number even on it?
09-2017.
Is it 08?
08-2017.
And do these have to be approved? Does each question have to be approved separately, or is it all in one?
It'd be one, you have a single, you do, if that's the direction you want to go, you have a singular resolution that authorizes submission of the ballot questions, so you'd read it by title, it would incorporate both questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I move to approve resolution number 08-2017, resolution authorizing the submission of ballot questions to the voters of the city of Monte Vista, allowing marijuana establishments within the city of Monte Vista and the imposition of a tax on sales of marijuana products in the city of Monte Vista.
Second.
Any other discussion? Anita?
Counselor Lorenz,
Nay.
Counselor Martinez,
Aye.
Counselor Schleba,
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is ordinances. We have ordinance 881, granting a franchise renewal to Charter Communications. I think everyone's had a chance to look over the agreement. Do we have any other discussion?
I move to approve ordinance number 881, an ordinance granting a franchise renewal to Charter Communications Incorporated.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Oh, on first reading.
Was it on first reading?
For the
Yes,
same.
I think
Yeah,
it's, I don't remember seeing it before.
sorry, I amend my motion to first reading.
Any other discussion? Okay, Nita?
Counselor Lorenz,
Aye.
Counselor Schleba,
Aye.
Counselor Martinez,
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item on the agenda is our city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councilors. Couple of things to add to my report. We did get preliminary notification from the state of Colorado that we did get our Best and Brightest award. There's paperwork, of course, to be done, but it was awarded, the grant was awarded. We should have a contract. I hope that we get it back in time for the next council meeting. Once that's approved, then Azrael will be a full-time employee of the city with 52% roughly of it paid for by the state grant and 48% by the city. So there's no additional cost to the city for having her as a full-time employee. One of the things that she's going to be working on, we just kind of went through, regardless if we got the Best and Brightest, we kind of went through her coursework and what she's going to be working on. And actually, I'm quite happy that in the spring, she's actually going to be taking a class on emergency management for her master's. And I said, well, here's an excellent chance for us to create the emergency management plan the council's been requesting. And rather than having it produced by a single department, she would actually work on that. And we've worked through a lot of the details. Robert Vance has all that level of emergency certifications through the federal programs. I've got a good experience with that. And with her coursework, I think we can actually craft a much more usable plan than the city's ever had, which incorporates our emergency command center, city hall with our generator and such, but gets down into some good detail on what would we do if there was a flood. Now, I know we all think there couldn't be a flood, but honestly, part of the city is in the 100-year floodplain, and looking at the disasters that have occurred, we are within a 500-year flood opportunity, which means there's a 1 in 500 chance. Houston's had 3 of those in the last 10 years or 8 years. So I'm looking forward to actually having her work on that in detail and have a plan that the council can approve. Excuse me. I had a conference call with Excel today, which actually produced some interesting discussions about, we will have a further discussion about localized solar with them and their programs. But we also had a discussion about looking at energy upgrades. We talked about Sky High Park in particular, but also about city buildings that haven't seen energy upgrades. And one of the things that they'll do is provide a lighting audit that's provided by a firm they have under contract that doesn't do any installations, has no dog in the fight, but can look particularly at Sky High, but also at our other facilities and make recommendations. No cost to us, nothing binding, but certainly create some opportunities. I also learned about some programs they have that they have quite a few programs, but there is one that, say we do a remodel or an upgrade of Sky High, both the HVAC components and the lighting components, they would provide a review of those components as designed, and we could actually get some energy credits for doing those using approved products that are certified. Once again, for them, the only dog in the fight is that we follow their guidelines of products. So that was a pretty good call. We now actually have someone from Excel assigned as our energy representative. So they should be down here. The auditing firm will probably be down here in the next couple of weeks because they're going to do some work in Alamosa. And it sounds like some opportunities. We'll have a call on the solar probably in early November to get with their solar group and talk about, localized facilities. So that was a pretty good call that we had today. I also provided on the DS, we had talked about, the council had asked for, essentially a succession plan, which I interpreted in the context to be kind of a modified chain of command or a management plan in the case of illness or incapacitation of the city manager, that the city would name an acting city manager, and that the city clerk would revert to control of the city council during whatever that period, either till the city manager returned or a replacement was named. And basically I provided you with language for that. If you get a chance to review that, if you have any comments, let me know, and essentially I'll work with the city attorney, we'll incorporate that into a policy document that memorializes that. And I think that will satisfy the concern that was raised by the council. Other than that, a lot of busy things going on that, we do have a lot of people that are making improvements to their property, which is encouraging. We also have a couple of people that have bought lots that I'm working with on potential developments that, might require special review processes or variances. And we're keeping pretty busy in that area. To clarify on our new police chief, he was in last week and actually got quite a bit accomplished. He will start full-time on September 19th. So we're looking forward to that. As I said, we do have a new animal control / code enforcement officer, and he's in the process of being trained in the PD right now. Looking forward to having him out on the street in the next couple of weeks. I've got a whole list of code issues that need to be addressed, and I'm going to actually spend some time and go around to point some of those out and kind of get him tuned into the code issues. So I don't know if you have, also on the pickleball courts, as most of you know, those are pretty much coming apart. And the contractor who did the work has had some issues, and essentially basically has told us that he can't fix it. City attorney's drafted a letter to him to look if we can get the insurance claims against that and get those repaired. Obviously they'll take a little bit of time, but it's unfortunate it happened. He came with good recommendations, and I'm not sure what happened with those, but if you look at them, they're in very bad shape. So we'll see what relief we can get from his insurers. And, Rob has discussed that, we can do some of that work ourselves if we don't get that relief from the contractor. Other than that, if you all have any questions, I'll try to answer them. That's all I have. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next we have our Kids Connection report.
Good evening. Apologies for not having a written report. Kids Connection's been a little intimidating the last couple weeks, so we are off to a good start in our after-school program. We're in our third week. It's been very eventful. We are currently seeing over 60 children each day after school. We started Tuesday this week. We had 62. Yesterday we had 63. Today we had 67. So we just keep them coming, and I'm constantly getting more enrollments every day. More and more new kids, not very many reoccurring children that we've had over the last couple of years. It's we're at a turning over point where we're getting a lot more new members. We are still looking to hire our 2 positions because we are missing 2 of our school time staff. So if anyone here would like a job after school working with kids, please apply. We need a lot of help. It gets really intimidating when you have that many kids coming at you. So even if you know anyone interested, tell them come try it out. we're to the point where we're willing to entertain anyone that thinks they're brave enough to handle that job. So we have Potato Festival coming up on Saturday. Kids Connection will be doing the kids games for Potato Festival. Last week we worked on creating some new games because our games had gotten kind of old and nobody really wanted to play them anymore. Plus I didn't want to load up like 100-pound games and take them. They were massive and ridiculous. So we actually put together 5 new games. We'll have 10 games over there. 5 of them are brand new for Kids Connection. And we kind of looked at them when they were finished and we're like, why don't we think about this before? It was very simple to put together. So other than that, that's just been how Kids Connection's going. Upcoming events in October, I've been working with Three Guys Farms to work on a poker tournament, charity poker tournament. All proceeds will go to Kids Connection. Mr. Nelson has agreed to some of my request, whereas the bar will be open during the poker tournament. All profits from the bar will also go to Kids Connection, so we have the potential of making even more money. The buy-in for the poker tournament is set at $60 a person. We're looking at $50. From the last conversation that I had with Alex, he had 38 people already interested in it. So at this point, it looks like it's going to happen. It will take place at the Monte Vista, and hopefully in the next week or so, I will have flyers handed out, and we'll be walking around talking to some potential sponsors from local businesses to see if we can get them involved as well. Along with the poker tournament, we tried to figure out how we could incorporate Kids Connection even more, because poker and alcohol is really the opposite of what we're trying to promote. So I believe that in the cafe during that night, for any parent who doesn't have childcare, we're going to hold our own Kids Connection like card tournament. We'll play Uno, we'll play Go Fish, just little kids games that we can have kids come in, meet the staff, and just get to know Kids Connection. Even potential poker players that have no idea what Kids Connection is, family members or anyone visiting just to check out the tournament can come in and meet the staff and see what we're all about. So fingers crossed that it turns out as big as it could potentially be. And as long as Three Guys Farms is in business again next year, we've agreed that we will continue to make this an annual event as long as there is a need for it. So other than that, if you have any questions, that is all I have for you tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have our recreation report. Recreation report.
Good evening. Ourselves and our department pretty much are trying to stay busy as well. We're coming out of summer events and rentals for the Sky High, and going into the winter and fall programs. Right now what we got going on is football, pee-wee football, tackle, flag football, and volleyball for the girls. We're also going to have an adult volleyball league, and we're going to host it over at the Sky High. The reason being the funding we have right now is going low. We can actually get, although they give us a good deal on using the facilities at the middle school, still we're trying to save as much as we can. So by using and then the other thing is that we want to use this Sky High more and kind of bring it out to the community. This is what we're going to start doing more things, and hopefully if everything works well, like I was looking to Mr. Forrest, get all these Sky High users to participate and maybe helping with the remodeling of the Sky High, crossing fingers, that we can put that to use a little more. So anyway, with flag football, we had a total of 10 kids, which is kind of low numbers this year. And for tackle football, we had 20 players. We made one team because we play with 11, so we didn't want to break it down and then just have enough to where we might not have enough for those games if we're breaking down. So we made one team for 5th and 6th with 17 players. We have 2 3rd and 4th grade volleyball teams with 9 players each, and 1 5th and 6th with 11 players. So again, I don't know what the numbers kind of dropped a little bit there this season, but we're still working on it. I had mentioned to you guys that we were gonna try to do the softball league around this time. We only had like 2 teams call in for sure that they were gonna play. But we also find out that Alamosa was trying a new fall league themselves. So we think that was some kind of interference there with numbers. And so it didn't work out. So we dropped that, and that's how we started the volleyball. And for volleyball so far we have 6 teams that are in, and we're looking at maybe 2 or 3 more. So the days that we're going to try to do this is we're going to start September 26th, and then we're going to go Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to about 8:30 or 9 at the Sky High. The registrations and the flyers are on Facebook. We send it to the paper. We post it on different Facebook pages and email it to directors around, and so I think it's getting a good response. We also have the Potato Fest coming up now this Saturday. We're getting ready for that. We are hosting the 5K run. We don't have any registrations online, but usually what happened last year, everybody registered that day. We know for a fact that we have the middle school cross country, and I also send it to other schools around us, trying to target our youth more, especially the cross country teams and the track teams, and so hopefully we get a good turnout. Last year we had, I think, 27 to 30 people participating, so we're expecting the same amount, or hopefully even more. And again, it's open to all ages. The obstacles are optional, so if you want to get messy, you got that option. If you just want to go and track your time, you have that option also. Let's see. We are hosting also a family fun skate night over at the Sky High on September 23rd. We want to kind of make it I know I've been talking about this for a long time, about making more programs family oriented where parents and kids can do something together. So this game, and it looks like it's gonna work out. We working in conjunction with CTC, Communities That Care, and Rio Grande Partner Prevention. They're helping us organize this, so we're working together to get this. And the charge is gonna be, it's kind of like a fundraiser, but we're only gonna charge like $5 per family, whatever size the family it is. You know, we try to keep it parents and daughters and kids, not second cousins or third cousins, so immediate family. And I think the Kids Connection is gonna lend us some skates in case some families go there without skates. We have some to provide. Also, the roller derby is gonna volunteer their time to help us out with that event, and they will also be bringing some skates, and then they're going to be setting up some games and stuff for them. So I think we're going to have a good time. Again, if you guys are available that night, it's going to be September 23rd from 6 to 9. We're going to have music and concessions and all kinds of stuff there. So hopefully we'll have good time. Excuse me. Jump into Sky High rentals. This month, or the last month, we had a few, not very many. We just had the SLB Fair Days. The Monte Vista Fire Department used the outside of the parking lot just for training. Rio Grande communities are there once a month, and of course our Pee Wee cheerleading and our Pee Wee volleyball teams use it for practices. Chapman Park, it was kind of slow the last month also. We only had like a few reservations for the pavilion, baby shower, the church, I believe, and the Catholic Church had some events on those on August. And like I was, just trying to go to meetings, different meetings that we trying to get involved and work with. I think that it will help the community with us getting involved with them, and it will help us being part of those committees and those meetings like the Holiday Festival, the Prevention Youth Council photo gallery that they had over at the Chambers, the RGPP, the CTC, and then of course our directors meetings that we try to have once a month or twice or once every 2 months. Potato Fest, and then our manager meetings that we have here once a month also. I think that, as far as the report, that's all I have. And there's other things that we have there that we've been doing, but just trying to stay busy, trying to keep the guys going, and trying to bring more adult programs, which is our focus right now, and without letting the Pee-wee programs deteriorate. So I don't know if you guys have any suggestions, any questions for me, or any comments that you would like to know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too. Jason, do you have anything?
So we had our school board, city council joint session on Wednesday, and we discussed a number of things. We have, so unfortunately, due to Center not having a football team, they had to move homecoming back a week. So the homecoming game will be on October 27th. And they had asked if we would still be interested in doing the bonfire like we did last year on October 26th. Down at the same spot. I told them that we were still interested in doing that. There's a chamber member there as well who we had pitched our s'more idea to them, and they said that they would be willing to assist in that and help out. So we'll have to get with them is that or with that initiative, and we possibly might need to provide a PA system, just because last year the acoustics weren't the best over at Sky High for the rally. So do we need a motion to approve the bonfire like last year for the high school homecoming, or can we just be in agreement?
I think that's a head nodder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're done building. Or,
Well, we could maybe.
well,
Yeah. We could maybe.
Yeah. The only other question that they had was for the holiday festival. We had discussed having the parade ending or looping back around and having it over at their stadium, and then doing the fireworks there at the stadium. That way people had more of a viewing area. They wanted to know if that was still...
Yeah, and that is the request of the fire chief as well.
Okay.
That it being a more open, less crowded, potential fire hazard areas. So,
I will...
I-
Yeah, I'll let them know on that one as well. So there'll be a number of projects that we're gonna work on, but I think continuing the tradition with the bonfire and kind of having a good uniting moment for the community there and helping support the football team is gonna be beneficial, and hopefully we can break the record for the world's largest s'more as well. I would like to request to set up a special meeting for September 14th at 6 p.m. to go over our review for the city manager as we had planned for in June.
The 14th?
Yeah.
I'm available.
Yeah, I think we'd said the 16th, but I think that's our,
This is Saturday.
yeah, Saturday, so if that's applicable for,
No, I thought we said the 19th,
oh, was it the 19th?
which would have been the Tuesday before the council meeting on the 21st.
Is that a work session, or is that?
It's a work session.
Is that all we had planned for that, or is that?
That would be all we had planned for that.
Okay, it doesn't matter to me, I think we just need to,
Let's just leave it on the 19th.
on the 19th then,
I'm good with that.
okay.
Okay.
So did you want a special meeting on the 19th though, Counselor?
I think for that, just to make sure that,
Yeah.
because it's not, or to have the one-on-one, probably a special meeting would be more beneficial than a work session.
Counselor, are you expecting me to be present?
Probably, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a conflict. That's the night of my Hooper meeting.
Okay,
It's the 19th, it's the third,
Tuesday.
I'm sorry.
What about the 20th?
20th would be fine for me. I'm sorry to mess your plans up.
No, we're just trying to figure out the best date to do it, so so should plan the 20th at 6 p.m.?
Sure, thank you.
Extra notice work pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Joe?
I got nothing.
I don't have anything this evening as well, so do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I move to go into executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators regarding employee compensation.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll take a short little recess and we'll come back in 5 minutes.
I think we need a vote.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just skipped past the vote part.
Counselor Lorenz.
Aye.
Counselor Schleba.
Aye.
Counselor Martinez.
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.